Let's discuss some of the areas you have focused on.
Yep.
And how well you think the city is doing in these areas and what kinds of initiatives you think are necessary. Hunger is one area that you focused on. How's the city doing in terms of, responding to this problem?
Well, Sheryl, I think one of the things I do not understand, and I don't think anybody that I talk to understands, why the mayor seems to be so against allowing able-bodied adults with no dependents to get food stamps for a longer period of time if they don't have a job or if they aren't working in a WEP program.
Especially since there's going to be federal money.
It's all
available.
federal money.
Right.
And the stimulus, the president has said he wants this waiver. He's put money in the stimulus package. My office calculates that it's $52 million that would come into the city. Federal money coming into the city. And by the way, that money doesn't go in people's pockets. This is not a bailout for individuals.
Right.
People spend that money.
Right.
They go to the bodega, they go to the supermarket, they go to the green markets, hopefully, and they spend the money to buy food.
So why does the mayor say he's opposed to it?
I think I don't understand it. He says that able-bodied people should be working, and if they're not working in WEP, and WEP, is where
right.
you work for a couple of hours, 20 hours a week, I think it is, in order to get your food stamps.
Right.
Well, you know what? First of all, there are 47,000 people now, able-bodied New Yorkers without dependents, who are eligible. There are in no way 47,000 WEP positions available in any agency in this city. I mean, I ran a WEP program, so
right.
I know very well how it runs.
Right.
It's not possible. So therefore, let's rethink the policy. People are going to be out of work. There are going to be a lot of people who will be looking for food stamps. I don't understand, and I beg the mayor to rescind this policy and to allow the able-bodied adults to get food stamps for a projected period of time.
Housing. Which is it's always going to be a problem in New York City. Well, how are we doing?
Well, I do think the mayor had a plan to build, I think it was 160,000 new units of housing.
Whatever happened with that?
I think some of it is happening, but I think what happened is the recession happened. And so a lot of people can't get, a lot of the developers, people building the housing, can't get the money to do the contracting work they need to do in order to finish the housing. I mean, I think I don't think that's anybody's fault. I think the plan was a good one, and I think the focus was a good one. Hopefully, because Sean Donovan, our wonderful commissioner of HPD, has gone to Washington to run HUD, perhaps a lot more of that will come back into the city now, and we'll be able to get going on the housing.
Yeah.
Clearly, the housing problem is huge. I mean, the affordable housing in this city is a big problem. We want more affordable housing. We need to figure out how to do it. I also think that that NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority, needs a lot of help, and I hope again that Sean Donovan will be able to give that help, because so many people depend on NYCHA housing to live, and it's important to New York.
Right, and you got Mitchell-Lama housing that's being phased out,
Yes.
and all kinds of strange things being done.
All kinds of things like that,
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more with the New York City Public Advocate, Betsy Gotbaum, after the following message. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with New York City Public Advocate Betsy Gotbaum. Education has been an area where you've really been a gadfly on the mayor and on the chancellor over their school reform efforts. I know it's a big question, but what's your general assessment of how school reform has gone?
Well, let me start off by saying the fact that the mayor had the courage to get the legislature to give him control of the school system, I give him an A for that effort, and I think that was very important to do. He was the first mayor that was ever able to do that, and it was really important to do. But having said that, and having just done a commission looking at school governance, which I was asked to do by Kathy Nolan, the chair of the Committee of the Assembly, there are a lot of things that have happened in the implementation of mayoral control that are lacking. Some of the good things, the emphasis on the schools, on bettering the education for all kids, on trying to lessen the achievement gap between minority children and white children. Important the focus and the emphasis. Important focus on education. More money. $14 billion more coming into the city. All of those things are very positive, and I applaud the mayor and the chancellor for that. However, in the implementation of mayoral control, what has been completely pushed out is any community or parental involvement, or any way in which schools and parents have a way of saying anything about policies that affect them. Let me give you an example that is burning in me, because I've been out in the schools. I try to go to schools twice a week all over the city. And one of the things that I hear all the time is that parents are told after the fact that things are going to happen that deeply affect their lives. For example, school bus routes changed in February. Why would you do that? Kids left out on the streets. Kids not being picked up at 6 o'clock when they're supposed to be. Kids crossing Francis Lewis Boulevard in Queens because they have to run to pick up a bus. All of those things happen without any parental input, without any notification so that parents could know this was going to happen. They got a notification, of course, the bus route's going to change. But there was no prior, let's discuss it. Cell phone ban, similar. One of the big issues now that's going to come up, and it's going to come up in the legislature when they redo mayoral control, or they don't redo it, is the fact that in many schools, charter schools are being put in schools, public schools, without any notification or any question to the parents whose kids are in that school already. Is it okay or is it not okay? Now, I'm not against charter schools, but I am appalled by what happens is you have a charter school coming into a school, takes a floor. Then what happens to the kids that should be on that floor? They're all stuffed into the rest of the school. So you have overcrowding. That affects the school, it affects the teachers, it affects the kids, it affects the parents. These are things that should happen with community and parental and teacher and administrative input. I don't want paralysis in the system, but you've got to have some kind of parental community input to policy.
And I remember, I mean, the bad old days are good old, I don't know. When you had the Board of Education, you at least you would have meetings, public meetings at the Board of Education where people could yell and scream and, you know, give their input. And there doesn't seem to be a place where they can do that now. Now, I know they have this panel on education policy, but what is it and how does it work?
Well, the panel on education policy is nothing more than a rubber stamp of the policies of the chancellor. And that's one of the commission's objections, is we believe you should have a panel on education policy. Our commission said, let the mayor have the majority of the appointees, but they have a fixed term. They cannot be fired if they disagree with the chancellor or the mayor. They can be fired for cause if they do something dishonest or something, you know, against, well, dishonest would be probably the best way of putting it. But they cannot be fired because they disagree with the policy. We should have open discussion about the policy. There should be some vehicle through which the public, the community, can say what they feel about a policy. I mean, to me, it doesn't, it's not...
Can they not do it? Appear before the panel and talk?
Well, they can, but what mostly I hear, and what we heard in the commission in our hearings, was that the decision has already been made, and the input of parents or educators, it's moot. They say, I mean, I have a perfect example on the west side of Manhattan, where I live and where my grandchildren go to school. Wonderful school, wonderful district. The school across the street from PS 87 was arbitrarily changed. I won't go into the details. Bringing in a charter school, moving one school. All of this happened without any informational input from PS 87 right across the street, or from the people that were in the school that was completely changed. Now, that disrupts a community. And if you're going to disrupt a community, you better let the community know and have some input, especially in New York City, right? And especially on the west side of Manhattan.
Do you think Joel Klein should stay on as chancellor?
No, I mean, I think the reforms that have been instituted need to be corrected. I think a lot of things need to be fixed, and I do believe that it's time to have someone, an educator, come in who can really take some of the reforms that are good, carry them forward, but take a look at some of the other things that have happened and maybe make a shift. I'm not sure, but the chancellor would want to do that or can do that.